with Europe's defence unity fraying and von der Leyen calling to fight, can NATO still count on a coherent EU strategy against Russia?
I think it'll be exaggeration to say that it will be coherent, but with President Trump forcing the EU and EU countries in NATO to take ever more responsibility for the war in Ukraine, then the EU and NATO have to cooperate together in order to pose a common front. But these are two different institutions with slightly different memberships. So coherence is very, very difficult for them to achieve.
She floats funding Ukraine with frozen Russian assets. Bold move or legal gamble that could fracture transatlantic trust, sir?
Well, this expropriation of Russian assets is controversial. The Germans themselves are hesitant and reluctant, but that she is suggesting that perhaps this capital, the Russian capital, can be used in order to secure a loan for Ukraine to refurbish and re-establish its civil infrastructure. So there are ideas which is not expropriation of Russian assets, but use of them in terms of the capital and the interest and the securing loans on it. But the Russians will resent this and see it as yet another example of why they should continue to fight the war to the very bitter end.
Von der Leyen sanctions Israeli ministers while Europe's foreign policy chief admits we're not united. Is this leadership or desperation?
Well, it's an attempt at leadership over a European Union which is not capable of being led, and the problem is this European Union is a very complicated construct. Some powers lie in the European Commission, others lie with the member states, which have to agree totally in their 27 members on a course of action to do with foreign and security policy. And so she is attempting to lead, but the EU is incapable of being led in a coherent way. And these cracks, these flaws, these weaknesses of the European Union have now been exposed by a crisis in Ukraine and the crisis in the Middle East, both of which demonstrate Europe's weakness.
Facing 60% public disapproval, is her tough stance on Israel and tech giants a shield to hide domestic weakness?
Well, I'm not sure that the Europeans themselves think deeply about leadership of the EU. Their 60% disapproval rating reflects their disappointment of where the EU is taking them, and their disapproval and disappointment about the level of growth, level of economic well-being that it's achieved 5 years since COVID, and many EU countries are stagnant, and this is the reflection. And von der Leyen is the um, victim of this dissatisfaction.
Exactly. I was just going to ask you, sir, why is von der Leyen the reason? You mentioned COVID, you mentioned economic stagnant. Why is she responsible for all of this together? She's not responsible definitely for COVID.
Yes, but she's tried to put herself in the lead, as you say, and so she is effectively being blamed, even though she doesn't have any real control of any of the major strategic issues that face the European Union. And I think this speech today was an act of desperation. It was an attempt to be Churchillian. She said that the battle lines for a new world order based on power are being drawn right now, based on power. And she realizes, and the EU realizes, they have no power. And this is the desperate situation that she finds herself, both unpopular and powerless.
Can von der Leyen legally suspend EU-Israel agreements unilaterally? Of course, or is she testing the limits of Commission power? But it seems she can't.
She, like Kaya Kallas, are trying to test the limits of power in the EU, the limits of centralized power. But she can't suspend, for example, totally the EU agreement with Israel. But what she does have power on is the trade arrangements, because the EU and the member states have ceded power to the Commission, von der Leyen, a long time ago in terms of trade policy. So what she can do, she is trying to do, but only very limited.
Banning minors from social media sounds protective, but does it violate fundamental digital rights under EU law, sir?
This is a complex question. As you say, it sounds fine. In the old days, they used to have warnings on the television. Youngsters couldn't see certain films and so on. But the problem is that digital information is not territorially based. And sometimes this desire to control digital information for 16-year-olds leaks out into a control of disinformation or information that is legitimately considered as free speech. And then you have the problem that the United States, where many of this information originates from or is based in, then the United States will say, you are trying to control us. You are trying to control Google. You are trying to control all these digital mega companies which are based in the United States. And so it's a very difficult legal issue how to isolate the protection of under 16s from the broader question of how do you protect freedom of information, freedom of speech.
Sir, rolling back Green Deal's rules under deregulation guise, is this legal pragmatism, sir, or betrayal of Europe's climate commitments?
Well, von der Leyen made much when she was elected for the second term of this Green Deal. And she made a deal with the Greens in order to pursue this Green Deal. Unfortunately, reality is breaking in, just like reality on Ukraine, reality on the Middle East, is now reality on the costs of net zero, and the Green Deal is now breaking in. And many economists are arguing that the approach to the climate change taken by the EU and others is too costly. It pushes up energy prices, depresses the industrial output, and then weakens and depresses the standard of living. And so, yes, she is trying to persist on the Green Deal and the climate change commitments, but there is a head of opposition in the European Parliament as in EU countries.